Shalom, welcome. Come on in. Ugh, greatness. Man, I've been sitting here, they watching the signal and everything already. So, so we're on. Not going to be on as long as usual today, just to give you a heads up. We're just trying to get this stuff started. Praise God. I'm ready. All right, looks like we're here. We're ready to go. Trying to get Facebook on, and then we can start. Okay. Hopefully everybody's staying warm, all that great stuff. All right, let's go ahead and get started. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect. Today's message, Aman. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi, ¿cómo está? Bonjour, c'est un peu Kofi, ça va? Niha, namaste, Osaya, Nikitubuya, Ohio, Nisi, Nut, Wan, Kamsa, Kamsamida, Aloha, Ciao, Abanagani, Uncle Abba, Mother Ase, Etese, Jambu, Mimini Kofi, the Frau Kukatana, the Wewe, Boker To, Boker Tav, Grand Rising, greetings, Bakwata, Barakala, Chamihala, Anai Kovai, Hela to Service of Christ, Mashalom Chi. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Looks like we've been dealing, well, it's bad weather over here, so I don't know. Might have bad signal. TikTok looks like we're having some signal issues and everything, and they've been on us. They've been messing with different things. They haven't been allowing us to go on YouTube. It took us a while to just get YouTube up and Facebook, and then TikTok now is giving us issues, so it might be one of those days. But prayerfully, you guys can come on and come in. Mic check, can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me and see me? All right, am I coming in and out? I can try to put TikTok on the other signal, but I think it's gonna probably be maybe just as flimsy, if not more so, than what it is. It looks like they're not even putting notifications out this rising, so I'm not sure. Can you guys hear me, see me? Okay, yes, no, maybe so. Looks like maybe no. Okay, loud and clear on YouTube. Okay, Facebook seems like we're all right. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me on TikTok? Anybody, yes, no, maybe so? Can you hear me, see me? It's more on yellow, green, or not yellow, green. We had a red, so. See? Okay. Gracias. Gracias por tu presencia. En Cristos, nombre es Yahweh, but yes, oh, okay. I'm gonna try and get TikTok going. Sorry, y'all. I know we should be going. We don't even have as much time as we normally do, so I'm going to let me see if I can put them on another signal. If we put them on another signal, let's see if This is just as strong a signal as we had yesterday, so at least so it says. I got a feeling if I put them on the signal, you guys are gonna have issues, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's see if that makes a difference for them. Okay. I don't know if this makes a difference or not. Now it's saying it's yellow. So I'm not sure if Facebook and the podcast are dealing with stuff. YouTube should be fine. But we'll try to see if we can make this one work. This one seems like it's sketchy. If I put it on the other signal, it says we're supposed to have full signal that's going on and off. But yeah, there's some weird wonky stuff going on. It is what it is. We got to figure this stuff out and eventually get our own stuff. So I'll have to keep dealing with this all day, every day. But prayerfully you guys can see and hear me all right. On TikTok still, it seems like we're going to be kind of glitching. So I apologize. We are on Facebook, we are on YouTube, and the podcast will be uploaded. I will not be on as long as normal. But we were going to go ahead and get into some words. So thank you all for being on. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Prayerfully you guys can join in, and if you're able to, I see some persons have already started sharing the live session, so feel free to do so. Seems like we're having a little bit of issue today, so we thank you for being on. Calendars, we're trying to push them out, so hopefully you'll be getting those if you haven't gotten them already. Prayerfully, today will probably be the first day anybody gets them, but if you don't get them this week, prayerfully you're going to be getting them next week. Alrighty. So sorry about that. Hopefully the signal's alright enough for us to keep on going. And we'll go ahead and get right into it. So normal schedule for today. Well, hashtag SOC University will be on. We may or may not have to change the time for it because some stuff as far as the normalcy with my family, as far as some stuff we do for homeschooling and things, some of the things we have scheduled may be different on today. So if we have to do it earlier or something like that, we put a Google Calendar invite out and put the information out. But prayerfully you guys will be able to tune in. And besides that, we should be on no matter what for the live session. If that has to change as far as time, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, just stay with us, and prayerfully you can hear us enough. I'm trying to figure out the signal thing. It's a little iffy. I'm hoping it's just because of the storm, but we've been having some weird stuff happening today. So just thank you for being on with us. So we're gonna get ready to say our Bible class and jump right in. Like I said, we probably won't even be on as long as normal. Probably like a little over an hour, and then I gotta dip out. So hopefully all is well. Early Shabbat Shalom to you in case I don't see you later on. But thank you for finding us and being with us and us rolling together. Come on. Alrighty. So how you doing? Before we do that, let's say Shalom. How you doing, Keith? Sister Joy, Auntie Marion, Beck. I need to call you Auntie Marion too. I'll be forgetting. Sorry. How you doing? Reality is book. Those who are on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, podcast. Appreciate love you. How you doing? Javon, MIT Raj, Sister Kimberly, Tamara, Monica, Serlene, Big Brother Thomas, Levine, Hero, Tabitha, I think it is, and anybody else is on Brewer Charlie, I believe I saw on it. Yep, I see you. I saw on there. Thank you so much. I see you sharing, and thank you if you don't mind today. We're having issues, so if you don't mind sharing, letting persons know that we're on, appreciate love you in advance for doing so. I'll try to see if I can do a little bit myself, but if you guys do put the stuff out there, it does help us, and thank you so much in advance for putting the information out there and everything. But everybody hopefully will be able to join us, even with all the stuff going on. Okay, all right. So you can just put your right hand or your Bible or your device in the air. Just repeat after me. This is my Bible. This is my sword. And this will I trust. For Yeshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Hashem Yehavach. Aman. Which is Yehovah's name. Hashem's authority. Amen. All right. Thank you for doing so. You may be seated to go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High Yah. Today we're going to talk about our point of view. Hashtag the Safe Place series. Today we're going to talk about point of view, or even algorithm to a certain extent. Right? Matter of fact, this probably will change for some of you. This will probably change. I think it's going to be changed to Head Start. I believe that the title is probably going to end up being changed to Head Start. So if you look for this later, just look for Head Start. And I do apologize for not having that in the beginning, but it is what it is. I was having issues trying to recall. I had so many notes. I was like, what? That I didn't write the motif for the theme. So, but we want to talk about the point of view or even the head start. Because what happens oftentimes nowadays, how you doing, double OG, triple OG? What happens nowadays oftentimes is that we are trying to catch up so much. And the goal should be to make sure that we have things so that we can make preemptive decisions, or that we can think about not just the concept, which is after the sept, which is after the idea, but actually have the proper precept before the idea is existing or is given to us. We should have a foundation, right? So when you're dealing with the precept or the sept, or even the concept, you have to deal with first of all, most persons are not in the know, at least not in the beginning, right? How you doing, Derek? So for most persons, for most of us, we don't know what's going on until it's usually too late, or we're trying to figure out what's going on because we haven't had a proper point of view. And so many persons make decisions without having a proper point of view, if that makes sense. So what are we saying? What are we saying when we say this? What we're saying is that many of us, many of you listening to me, have heard about the truth, but have heard about it where it's so late to where you feel like a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and a lot of frustration trying to come out of something because you've always been given the information later, right? And one of the things that you deal with in war, right? Whether spiritual war, physical war, your political wars, whatever the case is, one of the things that you're dealing with war or your fights or your existence even, to be honest, is we are oftentimes going to find out what really happened later on, rather than be in the position to where we have enough knowledge from the beginning. And what Yahweh wants us to do is to realize that he prioritized. That scripture in Romans chapter 8, verse 29, that says that for those that he foreknew, he also predestined. We talked about that before. That's actually not even correct, even in the Greek. If you were to look it up, it actually would say for those that he foreknew, or that word foreknew there would actually be those who he forecasted. So he told us what was going to come before, and he even forecasted us, told us who we should be in these times. And then it says, instead of he also predestined, that word was put in there after the doctrine of predestiny or predestination was put together. But actually, those who he predestined should actually say those who he foreknew, or those who he forecasted, or even forecasted to. He also prioritized. He prioritized you, and he prioritized what he needed you to do. Right? Amen, Bo Servant. How you doing? Right? How you doing, Dr. T? So those who he forecasted, those who he was like, okay, you're going to be here. I knew you before the foundation of the world, etc. Right? I'm also going to forecast. I'm also going to give you some things and tell you some things that are going to happen in advance, so that you'll be able to be in a position to where persons will actually know what's going on with you, right? So there's some things that he forecasted, right, including us, that he said these are the persons that will be here. This is what you'll go through. This is what the world's going to offer. This is how a person's going to try to fight against you. These are the tactics of the enemy, right? And then he also prioritized, right? Or prioritized, not predestined. That's a whole different word. But he also prioritized. So he actually knew us in advance and prioritized and forecasted who we are, right? And gave us some information to help us with who we should have always been. And then he also prioritized the information he gave us and prioritized us. Right now, why is this so important that we catch this, that we keep this, that we honor this, that we love this, that we make sure that we study this, etc., etc.? Why is that so important? Because we got into a place to where we don't have a head start. The Bible declares that you should have a head start. You should be prioritized, right? That there are things that he wants to give you that give you the game, that give you the clues necessary to realize that you already have won. You are more than conquerors. So when persons even try to conquer you, you must recognize you are more than conquerors. Before even the conquering happened, he has prioritized you, right? This is the context of what we're saying. And that's why we say read your Bible, it'll bless you. And we say most persons have never read a Bible because most persons don't read within culture, they don't read within context, and they definitely don't read within contextual facts that reveal truth. So what happens is, oftentimes, because somebody has shaped your algorithm, so to speak, right? Or somebody has messed with you, or somebody has messed with the truth so much, we have actually lost the ability to be able to make decisions in the moment based off of the foundation that we should live on even before we get into the moment of that decision. Okay? So, for example, here's some examples. How you doing, Minister Shante? So, for example, you haven't been given a head start, right? At least you have, but you haven't learned how to pay attention to it. How you doing, Sister Audrey McGuire? And peace and early Shabbat Shalom to everybody who's on here. So, one of the things that's happened is it's been difficult. How you doing, Short Kid? How you doing, Sam? Everybody coming in. So, one of the things that's been made difficult is for you to comprehend in the moment what's going on. And so you always make decisions based off of what's late, rather than paying attention to what's happening in the moment and having a certain mindset, having yourself together, recognizing the clues because you know the contextual facts that reveal truth in the moment. So Vietnam, big one, right? Vietnam. Thank y'all for the love. So Vietnam, big one, easy, by the way, right? How many persons actually knew what was going on in Vietnam when the so-called Vietnam War started? The answer is many do not. We talked about this even in one of our line sessions recently. But how many persons knew what was going on in Vietnam? Not many. And now the effects of Vietnam are still plaguing society today, right? Especially with those countries who were involved in it, right? The United States of America is not the only place where persons fought in Vietnam, right? The Vietnamese fought in Vietnam as well. But also, too, we forget that in the 1800s, who were the colonizers of Vietnam? That would be the French. And when the French lose Vietnam during World War II, they go back into it. And then after that, the French basically get overtaken by the United States of America. The United States of America realizes that the way that they're fighting is not going to win them anything, so they finally give up. And so now the Vietnamese are in the position that they are. We don't care about the Vietnamese point of view, though, enough to be able to say, how does that affect them? And how is it still affecting them? And now that we're starting to say, maybe we should think about that, it's what? Hundreds of years, right? 100 plus years at least that we had to deal with the fact that there was colonization and persons being misrepresented and things like that. We don't even think about the fact that if you meet an old head that's a Vietnamese person, they speak French. Why do they speak French? It's not a natural thing for them to speak something outside of their culture, but we don't care enough to learn, especially in the moment. We don't even think to ourselves, how is it that when we're fighting the war, there are persons who are Vietnamese that will actually try to speak to the soldiers in French? How you doing, MIT LaCrystal? How you doing, Chantel? How you doing, Tick, Lasana? Everybody coming in on all platforms. Thank you so much for being with us again. Thanks for being on YouTube, podcast, Facebook, TikTok, right? And how you doing, Mindful Moments? And I'm not going to take too much of your time today. I'm not going to be on as long as normal, right? But we don't take time out to see what's going on. How you doing, Sister Nadine? Praise y'all. Oh man, I was literally thinking about you. I was going to try to reach out. I don't know if you still have Fridays. Oh, how you doing, Sister Tia? So when we're talking about this, we don't have, and how you doing, Sister Michelle? Sorry, excuse me. So in all this stuff, we don't have a head start. We do not make decisions based off of what's going on in the moment because we don't recognize what's going to happen, even though we have a script. We have the answer. We have the Bible, right? We have Biblios, etc. We have this canon. We have this measurement of rule that has not failed us as far as making sure that bare minimum we have context going into dealing with wickedness and dealing with righteousness, right? Another example, right? Everybody's still trying to figure out how do we deal with so-called racism, white supremacy, so-called African Americans and where they are. So now it's turned into FBA, Foundational Black Americans, and all the stuff that we have. And nobody's thinking about the fact that you're dealing with a group of persons who are mixed as far as Native American, mixed with as far as and Native Americans are the actual Americans, right? Because the definition of an American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas, right? So we're dealing with Native Americans, we're dealing with so-called African Americans, we're dealing with the so-called Arawak, right? The actual Jamaicans who are bigger than what we think they are, right? We're dealing with the Olmec Shi. We're dealing with Aztecs, or so-called Aztecs. That's not even what they were called, or what they called themselves. Somebody in Oxford called them that. We're dealing with Africans. We're dealing with Negroes. We're dealing with Israel. We're dealing with all this stuff. And we're finally getting to a place where somebody's like, hey, we should actually deal with the fact that there's persons who have been disconnected from themselves. And before we start saying that all of them are bad, all of them are terrible, and all of them must learn how the West functions in order to have proper um, African and Eastern functionality, maybe we should actually find out how they function beforehand, how they're designed, right? How they eat, how they listen, how they operate, how they speak, what language do they have, what is their DNA memory. Maybe we should go into some of these items, right? But we live in a society today that says, well, we're not worried about that. But we, as a diaspora, have to begin to set our own algorithm. We, as a diaspora, have to make sure that we have made a safe place for a head start. We have to start making sure even that our babies, right, are schooled by us. Because being schooled by the system could care less, right? How you doing, Brother Bradley? How you doing, Sister Sherry? ¿Cómo está mi hermana? Mi hermana, right? Perdóname. Right? We have to get to a place of where we, how you doing, Brother Jermaine? We have to get to a place where we recognize and realize, wait a minute, our people do not have a head start. And that's what we need to give, right? Our people don't have a head start as far as housing, right? Something simple that every space, every place, every nation that has grown in any way, shape, or form or has existed, if you're going to exist for generations, you have to make sure that there's a head start. There's land to be given to somebody else. This is why your enemy comes in and takes your land. Right? How you doing, Benjamin or Benjamin? I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Right? You have to think to yourself, why would somebody keep coming and taking your land? When they take your land, they take away your ability to have a head start. And then somebody gets to say, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and ignore the fact, as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. taught us, we get to ignore the fact that it's a terrible thing to tell a man to pull up by his own bootstraps when he has no boots. Right? How you doing, Cultural Prospect? It's a hard task to tell somebody walk in victory and you have nothing to walk in. How you doing, Brother Rodney? It's a cruel joke, even. That's what he called it. A cruel joke to tell a man to pull himself out by his own bootstraps when he has no boots. You see? Right? How you doing, Universal Truth? How you doing, Trey? Yeah, it's wickedness. How you doing, Sister Shirley? And Trey, and anybody coming on, if I miss you on any other platforms, Ron, thank you so much for being on with us, right? So we have to come into a mindset, a thought process, even an agreement, that first things first, how do we start and how do we provide a head start? This is a generational task. We're talking about breaking generational curses, right? We're talking about breaking generational curses. Right. As a matter of fact, if somebody doesn't mind keeping me on track, tomorrow we're supposed to talk about curse-free. Right, but we're talking about generational curses, breaking generational curses. This is not something random. This is not something whatever. This is something that's like, yo, like we should make sure that we take time out to think on what it is to break these generational curses and go back to the scrolls and go back to where we had a head start. This is one of the things we're missing in information, in land, in finances, right? We are persons who don't even care really about leaving any kind of inheritance. And we are persons that don't even believe and realize that an inheritance is not something that's left when you die. Biblically speaking, and in the Western world as well, right? In our culture, well, it's not even our culture, and what has become our culture, what we've subscribed to, remember, they're supposed to be at ease with your scorner. They're supposed to fill you with contempt so that you walk around filled with contempt for yourself. Right? That being said, what's going on? What's going on, right? As you're seeing a bunch of persons who are filled with contempt. You're seeing a bunch of persons who are walking around who don't look at themselves as righteous, who don't look at themselves as being in right lawful standing. You're seeing a bunch of persons who are filled with contempt, could care less about honoring one another or lifting each other up. You're seeing no encouragement, right? It doesn't make sense that one would say, hey, when you turn 18, leave my house with nothing. It's bad to tell them to stay in your house, especially if you're, in our culture, if you're a man or if you're a male. This is our culture now. If you're like, oh, I don't like your culture, I don't like what you say, fine, this is not for you. But for those who are in this culture, Yes, we try to make sure that we train up our sons so by the time they're 22, when they hit 22, we say, okay, here's your inheritance and keep moving. And we've trained you and you continue to put, keep pushing in what we've put forth. How you doing, Brother Angel? Right? But we're dealing with, how you doing, Sister Dawn? We're dealing with the community and a culture and a mindset that says we are supposed to not honor taking care of the next generation. So there is no head start, right? And what's going on, and it could be with America in general, right? Somebody brought that up, and that's a great point, that it could be everybody. But what's happening now is that, and that's not just in America, in the West, and somewhat in the world, is that every generation that's coming behind us now is ending up more impoverished than the generation that came before. There's fewer persons gaining wealth, and there's more persons dipping into poverty, right? And that's because what was done to one group is now being done to everyone, right? What was done, and everybody just said, oh, it's because they're stupid, they're slow, they're ignorant, they're not attractive, they smell, they're funny looking, they're too peculiar. Now it's affecting everybody, because what you do to one is ultimately what you're going to do to everybody else. How you doing? Olive, praise God. Amen. All right. First character, like that, right? So now you're seeing everybody affected, where everybody's in this position to where nobody has a head start. This is the trick. This is one of the biggest tricks of the enemy, is to get you to separate from things that cause you and your generations after you to have a head start. So if every generation of ours continues to come out, and thank y'all for the love, if every generation of ours, and how you doing, acronym king? If every generation continues to come out and say, okay, you're 18 years old, we're not going to take care of you anymore, what do you think happens? Everybody continues to not have a head start. It's like waiting to give someone a coat later when it's cold now. Yeah, amen, right? Like even with the coat drives. I feel bad sometimes with the coat drives that we do, because even when we do a coat drive, guess what? Even when we do a coat drive, somebody might get a coat, and you're like, man, you should have had this. Like now, somebody will come to coat drive next month. You should have had, if we're able to do another one, we're like, you should have had a coat in October. The fact that you're still coming out, and it's like, what was your child wearing? I'm not saying they maybe didn't have a coat, but some of them, they just putting on multiple sweaters. They're running out, trying to hopefully get to a bus, if you're even in a place where they even do buses anymore. They're trying their best to stay warm and run to the subway station, right? And hopefully be warm enough, and then run inside, and hopefully the school has heat, And so you're looking and you're like, man, it's late. But that's what happens, is many persons have not been given the opportunity to have a head start in knowledge, a head start in schooling, a head start in philosophy, a head start in culture, a head start in language, right? If you're learning your native language, many of you, if you're learning your native language, you are learning it, many of you are learning it decades later. Your native language, right? Even that within itself, right? I have to make a disclaimer, or I have to make a distinction, rather, and say this is your native. This isn't your native language. Because a lot of you have even been trained to what? To think that because you were born somewhere, that means that's who you are. And a lot, and those who are followers of the way, or even you so-called Christians, or whatever it is a very weird philosophy to have. How you gonna talk about it? It's a very weird thought process to have, because you know this better than anybody else, how your native language, or just because you're born somewhere, doesn't mean it's your home. You say all the time, heaven's my home. I'm not really here, even though when heaven meets earth, we're going to be on earth and heaven at the same time, but it'll be a new earth. But I get what you mean, right? Well, we'll say all the time, heaven's not my home. Earth is not my home. Earth's not my home. I'm not really from here. I'm just passing through. You hear all these sayings, but then somebody says, well, this isn't your home either. And they go, oh, no. I'm an American. Why? Because you were born there? What is an American? You don't even know that an American, by law, once again, is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. So you start to apologize, or start to debate against yourself, right? Not realizing that you yourself have appropriated a culture that's not yours. Because if you ever found your culture, you would stop trying to take on something that doesn't belong to you, right? You would become a non-citizen national when you realize that, hey, my nationality can never be an oppressive one. I'm more than a conqueror. How can I identify with the conqueror? This should be your mindset. If you say you believe in the word, this is your mindset. That's what you'll tell. You'll tell a stranger on the street who doesn't even know the Bible, and you start getting on your and I'm not mad at you, get on that pedestal and tell them all this stuff. But you got to realize and recognize that as you standing on your pedestal, make sure that you recognize that the stuff you're telling them should apply to you as well. How you doing, Sister Deborah? And thank y'all for the love. Salah. Pause and think about what you just said. Right? Oh, thank you, Brother Charlie. I see you. Thank you so much, right? You hear what I'm saying? There's a lot of persons who are so busy being caught up in this stuff and haven't realized that, hey, this is not my home. Where I come from, my people don't talk like this. Right? I'm trying to figure out how to speak and how to make something my own. This is why you have this mentality. This is why you have this thing. This is why you have this thing that you call slang, right? Because you're trying to figure out, how do I make a language that's not mine, something that is separated from the one who pushed this into my mind. Right? But in reality, this is not even our language. Right? This is not even our language. These are not even our clothes. You hear what I'm saying? Like, clothes have culture, they have value. But even in that, you're not taught to have a head start, to have something. So somebody else comes from another culture, and you make fun of the Mexican little girl because she wears dresses when she's young. But guess what? The Mexican little girl wears dresses when she's young because you're trying to make sure that she knows her culture. So you making fun of her at the laundromat, not realizing that she's cultured up. Right? The Mexican little girl hears her music playing before she hears anything else. Doesn't mean that she can't listen to rap or anything else, but she's going to hear her music. The Mexican little girl knows Selena, right? Even if she wasn't born when Selena was around, because that's part of her culture, she keeps it. If we were to ask the average person, some of our sons and some of our daughters, identify Chuck Berry. We can't do it, right? Identify Mama Thornton. Can't do it, right? What's the difference between Dizzy Gillespie and Miles Davis? Can't do it, right? Who is it? Right? Why is it that it was so important that persons learned in the church, even if they weren't going to believe in the Most High and live as He said, because we were trained culturally. How you doing, Sister Sheila? You said original language seems foreign because they hid it for 65 years. Yeah. So the language that's supposed to be yours, it seems foreign, right? Some of us, when we hear iron, I don't even use the iron anymore, right? I'm started using the steamer because I be traveling, but still. Right? Some of us, when we hear iron and stuff, we don't even realize, we don't even know, hey, that used to be something just like the hot comb. You put that on the stove, and you let that thing heat up. And then you use that thing that was heated up to go ahead and iron out your clothes. Right? You needed the heat. Right? We have no, and I'm trying to tell you this because I'm just saying there's things where we don't have a head start. Right? Your child looks at a phone. Right? Your child has no idea. When we were young, we were like, hey, we want our son to be on rotary phones just to learn. Hey, we want our son, whenever we find a phone booth, they don't even really exist anymore, right? But whenever we find one, we stop there and we talk and communicate. Why? Because we want you to comprehend where you come from. Even that small difference can be something that connects him to something greater than himself, rather than being somebody who only knows things within himself. This is why you see all these videos. How you doing, Brother Thomas? Right? This is why you see all these videos out there where child is asking the parent, oh, so you were born in 1990 something. Okay, well, how was slavery? Because persons are so busy, while the child is affected by slavery, still, through generational curses, right? Through PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome, generational curses show the child that they're still affected by slavery, right? But at the same time, they're never shown what actually happened to those who came out of it, and those who are still really, in a certain sense, dealing with the mental slavery and the mental change. We can't break them because there is no head start even on information. And by the time the child finally says, you know what, I need to actually seriously go into what is slavery, that child is 25, 35, 40. Right? That's right, never allowed to learn about ourselves as children. Yeah. And so when you're not allowed to learn about yourself, what do? You come up with a story, or if you can't come up with your own story, which many don't, then somebody comes up with one for you. Right? Because if you plan to fail, you fail to plan. But here's another part that they need to put on there. There's somebody who's always planning on your failure. Hmm. How you doing, folks? West Scott. How you doing, Sister Cherry? You said don't just live life, pay attention to it. It's your go-to for your children, yeah, right? So, hear me, beloved. Hear me, beloved. You hear what I'm saying? Hear me, beloved. Right? Our issue, our children's issue, our parents' issue. I know we act like parents don't have no problem, but our parents' issues are very similar. They're coming from the same place. We don't know ourselves, and we're not ready for a head start to be given. We were never given a head start, so we don't see the value. The only value we see in anything called head start is when you're putting your child into a system so that they can be taught by a school that's not going to teach them anything about themselves. Then you want to find the right head start for your child. Or, for real, you just can't wait to be an empty nester of some sort, or at least don't have to deal with them before you go to work. Right? Or maybe you don't have to pay as much for babysitting. But your child should have a head start in culture. Right? We take on someone else's story. Your child should have a head start on where they come from. You should have a head start. Yeah, and you were told you asked too many questions. Yeah, because a child's place is not to ask questions, just do as you're told. But where do you get that from? Somebody who didn't want you to have a head start. Somebody who didn't want you to have your own algorithm. See, watch this. If you don't know how this works, because look, I'm not great with technology myself, but one thing I have learned, praise y'all. How you doing, Sister Judith? One thing I have learned about technology with the algorithm is that no matter how much, because YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and all of them, they're going to say that they're going to try their best to push stuff that you like. The reality is, though, is that they're going to give you a lot of stuff that you don't even want to see. That being said, right, if I were right now to just start watching nothing but Japanese swordsmen, guess what would fill up? If I started putting thumbs down on everything, it just said, I just want to see Japanese swordsmen, that's it. Guess what would happen at some point? How you doing, twin? At some point, almost immediately, matter of fact, I'll start seeing a lot of Japanese swordsman stuff. I'll see a lot of Japanese culture. I'll see a lot of Japanese fighting. I'll probably see some Street Fighter stuff. I'll probably see some things as far as Mortal Kombat, even though technically that ain't Japanese, but they use some of it, right? Like I'll see a lot of different things presented because I made a choice as far as I am going to make sure that I start to value myself. So if somebody says, man, all I'm seeing on TikTok is just rump shaking, big booty girls, right? And the dude is like, man, I'm too holy for this. I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. Like, maybe I'll give you that for 2 days. Maybe I'll give you that for a week. Maybe I'll give it to you for a month. But after about a month, I'm gonna say, bro, are you watching it? Are you liking it? Because even though TikTok is trying to send you certain things, it might still give you commercials. But TikTok and all these places, they sell information. So at some point, you gotta at least dislike the ads. At least, right? I've had the stuff pop up on mine. It comes back and forth every once in a while, right? But guess what I do when it comes on there? When I start seeing it get crazy, and some of this foolishness and some of the stuff they're trying to sell persons because they know your information, or they know that you're a man, or whatever. They see that I'm a black man or whatever. Guess what I got to do? I got to go through the process of saying, I'm going to dislike, I'm going to say don't recommend channel, I'm going to say block this channel, I'm going to say whatever. I'm going to make it a point so that I stop seeing that stuff on there. So after a while, that's on you, bruh. Everything on my channel is talking about how to break families apart. You know why? Because you like watching stuff that breaks families apart. Even if you're right. And by the way, sometimes even if you're disliking it, you have to be careful how much you dislike. Because disliking still gives certain persons know that persons hate watch. This is how DJ Academics stayed around as long, if you know who I'm talking about, how he stayed around as long as he did. Because persons even saw him falling apart and loved to see him fall apart. They loved to see him drunk and passing out. They loved it. Hey, are we going to see some girl in the background who's probably getting SA'd? Wow, there's drama. Now we can talk about it. Did he do it? Did he not do it? Is today going to be the day that he's not on Twitch? Is today going to be the day that he's kicked off of YouTube? Is today going to, they know. But you have to begin to set your own algorithm. In life, you have to have your own point of view, or at least have a point of view through the prism of the Most High Yah. Work on developing it. How you doing, Sister Renee? How you doing, Aaron? If I didn't say so already, please forgive me. You said your grandmother Grandma had a set of those irons, different weights, literal iron, no iron, please. Right. The iron that was on the Monopoly board, as a matter of fact. Right? Right, but this is what we used to deal with. There was something, and there's a goal, head start, pass something on. Right? Head start, pass something on. This is what we're missing. How you gonna know this reality? Pass something on. What are you passing on to the next generation? The word says flee from it. I see it. Amen. Right? Pass something on. What are you doing to make sure that the next generation has a head start so that they will not be in the same situation that you are? See, it's bigger than just you. And what we've been taught is, well, it's up for us. We can't do anything. Time out. First of all, that's not true. You can make changes today that cause you tomorrow to be better, and make changes tomorrow that cause you next week to be better, and make changes that week to cause your next month to be better, and make changes next month to cause your next year. And even if you only got 20 years left, make those 20 years the greatest that you've ever lived. Right? You felt lonely for 15 years. Make sure you don't feel lonely for 5. That being said, though, as we improve, we're also improving because it's bigger than just one person. So it's bigger than just you. You hear what I'm saying? Right? It's bigger than just you. It's bigger than just what you want to be, what you think you are, who you think you are, etc. It's bigger than you. Right? I don't want my son to ever deal with the numbers and the guaranteed numbers, and even what his father went through, which is, hey, he had to deal with the penal system and had to go to prison, even if it was for something he didn't do, and even if I was technically never on trial. So how do you do that? That's why sovereignty is important, not just so that I can say, see, I'm not one of y'all, but no, right? Strengthen yourself. What does the Bible say? Romans chapter 15, verse 1. It says, those of you that are strong, you should take on the infirmities of the weak, not just for yourselves. And many persons have decided to get strong so that they can say, look at me. And I realize that my strength is so that there's somebody else that might be blessed or barak through my becoming strong. All praises to the Most High God. Amen. Right? So you do your best to share the word. Amen. And share the word, right? But share the culture. I'm not coming down on anybody, by the way, but I just want to throw that in there. Share the word, but share the culture. Right? I've said this before to y'all. I've had conversations with my wife. We'll be walking to the mall, and I've asked her before. I've said, hey, you see all these women that are in front of us facing the other way? She goes, yeah. I say, question, right? Because we can't tell what color they are from where we are. Can you tell me who's black and who's white? And I'm not trying to say white persons are bad. Hear what I'm saying? I'm talking about culture. I say, can you tell me who's black and who's white? And from hairstyle, from hat, from dress, from pants, from shoes, right? You can't tell. What does that tell us? It doesn't tell us one's bad or one's whatever. Yeah, it tells us that there is no identity or no way of identifying who is who. And that's a dangerous place to be, because now that same kind of philosophy has come into your churches, has come into your mosque, has come into your temples, has come into your homes, has come into your places of worship, has come into your cookouts, where, well, maybe the cookout not as much, but you get what I'm saying, right? It's coming to the place to where you identify with having no identity. And so if that's what you identify as, guess what? That's why your churches look like something that has no identity in Christ, because you think that if it don't look white, it don't look Christ. You think that if it's not Eurocentric, there is no Messiah, there is no Mashiach. You think that if you don't have enough money, that you are not rich, right? When money has no value within itself. Money can only be valued according to what it's attached to, and there is no gold standard, so it lost that value, right? The rate of inflation was allowed to be raised recently in the last few years, so it's lost even more value. It's fiat cash, and about 97% of fiat cash has no value because it has nothing it's based on anymore, right? And yet you've been taught to keep putting so much value in something that really is supposed to be used to get you something of value, give you a head start. How you doing, Brother Vincent? Right? This is why you need to learn the value. It doesn't matter. And I'm trying to tell persons, I try to teach persons this, and those of you who travel, you know what I'm talking about, because you can travel to wherever you want, and I promise you it's the same bogus ideology. Everybody like, well, once we leave America, once we leave England, once we leave, I'm telling you, if you go to, as much as I love Ghana, and as much as there's a lot of cultural stuff that's still in place, I promise you, if you try to talk about the Most High, and a lot of places there, because they've been informed through the mixing of iron and clay, and have idolized a color rather than actually worshiping the Most High, right? I'm not telling us to idolize black. I'm saying worship the Most High. And if you worship the Most High, you'll be honest about referencing who He is, who He was, who He forever will be, no matter what. And you won't try to change the story to make it fit whatever your context is, or whatever somebody else told you your context should be. That's just the reality of it, right? So when you go to other countries, you're going to find that they still are idolizing, worshiping, and then somebody will say, right, you have to be careful, get a head start, change your algorithm, look for contextual facts that help to reveal truth. Watch this. So they'll tell you some foolishness. They'll say some stuff like, well, you know, every culture has always made their God in their image. Can I tell you that's a lie? Might I teach you a little something about that? Because you're going to hear somebody say that. You probably heard that before. Right. I just want to show you a little something. They'll say that every culture has always worshipped a so-called God or spirit or spirare or deity, deus, nature, umachi, etc. They'll try to say all of these were always made in somebody else's image. But this is a lie, okay? Watch this. If you go to Russia, a lot of y'all know about Russia recently, but you should have known this a long time ago had you had a head start. If you go to Russia, there's plenty of places to where you go in churches and Christ doesn't look like that. All right? If you go to Prussia, there are plenty of places where you go in there to worship and Christ doesn't look like that. If you go to the Vatican and look through some of their books, though, further back you go, Christ doesn't look like them. Right? It wasn't until Caesarea Borgia and some other stuff happened that Christ began to change. Right? YouTube's not working? Okay. Is it Facebook or YouTube? Facebook's probably not working. It gave me some symptom about Facebook. Hopefully it'll pop up when we record it. Right? You see what I'm saying? Like I'm just trying to tell you, they'll tell you this. Right? They'll tell you this stuff, but that's iconoclasm. When they wanted to be worshipped, they changed what Christ looked like. Right? Well, they changed what Christ looked like to make sure that Christ looked like who they wanted you to worship. How you doing, Brother Lamont? Right? They changed who Mashiach, Messiah was, so that you would worship them because they wanted to get you influenced on them. So what's one of the easiest ways? Well, look at the color. Look at the color of their eyes. Look at how their hair is. Okay, so we'll change it so that they look like us. And if we're the conquerors, then we should make sure that those who are conquering, we represent Christ. But when they say, oh yeah, everybody, by the way, go back to the Greeks. The Greeks, even when they had all their various deities and deities that they worship, go back and look at the Greeks. The Greeks did not worship persons who looked like them. Matter of fact, that kind of could be off some because the Greeks themselves, look like us to a certain degree. That being said, though, right, they would even tell you in Greek, the Greeks and the great philosophers would tell you that they believe that they needed to go to places like Kemet and Kush and other places, and even the Carthaginians, etc., to be able to learn more of the truth. Why did they do so? I'm not saying I 100% agree with this. I'm just telling you what they wrote. They wrote out that the reason they came to us, was because they said that they believed that because we were more melanated, that must be the reason we are smarter. I'm not trying to tell you I 100% agree with it. What I'm trying to tell you is they will tell you that they didn't make stuff in their image because they believed, now they idolized the people, they idolized us, and that's not cool either. But what I'm just trying to tell you, they still idolize us. You should be careful with that when everybody's like, well, you set the standard. You set the standard, but don't get worshipped. Don't get so worked up that you want to be worshipped by these guys now. How you doing, Miss Q? With that being said, how you doing, Lewis Smith? There is something to this whole thing of having a head start. We don't have a head start concerning information. We do not have a head start concerning ourselves. Right? Facebook's not working. Okay, thank you. So we don't have a head start concerning us. We don't know who we be. And so when you don't know who you are, you're going to have a problem. And when you don't know who you are and don't value enough who you are, many persons could care less. Like, no shade, no shade, but just asking a real question. How many of you know your great grandmother's and your great grandfather's names? How you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Alma. As always, check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist, balanced by degree. And once again, I'm sorry. I know the day's glitching. We've really, I'm going to say it's the weather, but there's been some other weird stuff going on technology-wise that lets me see if you knew the stuff that I had, weird stuff I had to do to get on social media today. There's somebody watching, and I'll leave it like that, right? Now, there's some of us that know all of our great-grandmothers and great-grandfathers' names, but many of us don't because it's not something that's important. It's not something that was told to you. It's something systemically that wasn't even important, and the system even broke up a lot of your families. So now, since a lot of us don't even know that, right, you got to think to yourself, well, what kind of head start do you have? What kind of head start do you have? And just because you never met them doesn't mean you can't find out about them. You can get an app for that. You can get an app for that. You can do some research. Get an app. Even if you got to pay $50 for the app, pay because it's worth information. Who do I come from? What do we have? By the way, what land did we have? Was the land taken properly? Could I actually take legal action to make sure that the land is given back? There's reasons why you should do this. If nothing else, though, at least know who you be. Who I be. Who you be. Who are your children if your children don't know where they come from? Your children say, I'm English. Your children say, I'm Scottish. Your children aren't Scottish. Your children aren't English. Well, you know, one of the queens of the Scots would look like us. Yeah, but she still wasn't Scottish. Right? What's her name? Catherine, or the one who's the great empress or czar of Rome? Rome. Of Russia? She wasn't Russian. Cleopatra, as dark-skinned as she might have been, she wasn't Kemetic. She was Greek. Who was her father? Somebody said we don't know her mother. True. Who was her father? Who was her source? Not just father even physically, but who was her father as far as spiritually? Who was her father as far as why she claimed to land that didn't belong to her? Who were the persons that were over Egypt before she came? Before her, Ptolemy came. She was the last Greek pharaoh, right? But who was Ptolemy? Where did he come from? Why did he claim it? Who did they fight? And who were the dynasties before that? You see, like, we don't value a head start. Why are we pushing going back to the beginning so much? We got to get the beginning right. We got to get etymology right. You hear me saying this stuff over and over again. We got to get our apologetics right. We have to learn who we are. We got to grow. We got to grow. We got to focus. We got to function right. We have to make sure that we teach the truth. We got to go back to the original stuff. You go back to the original because the original was designed to make sure that you had a head start. Right? Because the original is designed to make sure that you're in eternity, which means that on the timeline you get a head start, but in eternity you straight. Period. I do not even know how to make sure that I pontificate that with proper etymology to ensure that you are getting the the contextual facts that reveal truth in such a manner that Amat is always going to be revealed word by word, line upon line. I'm just telling you, I'm going to say it the same way I just said, right? If you learn how to get something in a head start, what you're really saying in eternity is I'm straight. Because eternity doesn't change. So when you are always lagging behind, it means you're not tapped into eternity. Truth is eternal. Did you hear what I'm saying? Truth is eternal. That's right, you gotta do more work to find out. Truth is eternal. Truth is what? Truth is eternal. Right? So you're trying to plug into truth because it gives you on the timeline a head start, but the reality is it's really tapping you into eternity. Okay, let's go, tough one. Come on, I see you, right? But truth is eternal. This is why, right? And by the way, this is why even the system that you're in gets you to do everything it can to be away from truth. And I'm not just talking about CNN, Fox News, CSB, what is it? CSBC, I don't know. I don't even know the names of all the stuff out there nowadays, to be honest with you. I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about your life is designed to distract you from ever trying to open a book about yourself. By your own people, by the way. In your own language. About your own culture, traditions, customs, mindsets, and religions. Even if the religions are false religions. You don't know about your false religions, but you know about theirs. Isn't that even that strange? That even when it comes to fables, some of you know who Anansi is. If I were to say, tell me a story about Anansi, many persons wouldn't even be able to tell you that. Why does the lion roar? From the West African perspective. Somebody probably couldn't tell me. Right? Why does the baboon have a red behind? According to an African perspective, somebody probably couldn't tell you. Right? You see, there's all these different things. But if somebody says, hey, did George Washington ever tell a lie? You can talk about that cherry tree. You see what I'm saying? If somebody were to come to you and talk about what is it that supposedly, Benjamin Banneker said, even though we'll come up with the wrong thing, or not Benjamin Banneker, excuse me, we don't even know about Benjamin Banneker like that, Benjamin Franklin. Somebody would be like, well, Benjamin Franklin, he did have a lot of sayings. I guess one of them, the probably most one, is that he's a jack of all trades, master of none. And it's like, no, he was a jack of all trades, master of one. But even still, you're at least close with that. But if somebody were to say to you, how does, who is Onyon Kapong? We have no clue. What is the golden stool? What is the golden chair? Who sits upon it? Are they even royalty? You see, you don't have a head start concerning yourself. Right? The golden stool, the golden chair, by the way, is something that that our women, our mothers, a mother of our nation would sit on. And when it was time to choose who the king would be, she would have to choose the king. Right? You're so into patriarchy, but don't even know that matriarchy allows for patriarchy. So now we say we want to be matriarchs, not realizing that matriarchs realize that patriarchy and matriarchy must exist together. And if there's a patriarchal system, it's because the sisters, the women, are the ones who support it because they multiply what the men do. This is the culture of marriage. Right? If you were to come even to Americans, copper-colored persons indigenous to the Americas, if we were to talk about the so-called Iroquois nation, Haudenosaunee, how you doing, Minister Stephen? If we were to talk about them, guess what? The Haudenosaunee, it was the women who had to allow whoever was chosen to sit on the throne. It was a council of women, and if the chief of all the other chiefs, so-called chiefs, if the chief over all the other chiefs was not doing what they were supposed to do, those women would come together in the council and they would say he needs to come off the throne. He needs to stop being our leader. He needs to stop being the chief. Because you can't have one without the other. Masculine and feminine, male and female. You can't have one without the other. It's law. It's natural law. It's kingdom law. It's natural law. It's kingdom law. Straight up. Facts upon facts upon facts. It's the way that it is. And many persons cannot and will not operate in such a fashion to ensure that you and I are learning about ourselves. We don't believe in learning about ourselves. If we knew where we came from, then you squash a lot of the beat. You squash a lot of the stuff that's saying, oh yeah, we shouldn't be listening, men are against women. No, men and women have always coexisted in our culture. If you talk about Haiti, you can't talk about Haiti fighting for independence and not mention the sisters who literally were fighting, I think at like 40 to 43%, might even be low 30, might even be 30%. I think it's up to like 40% of the women, of the persons who fought in the Haitian Revolution were women. There's a famous story of there's a man who's getting ready to be hung and his wife is next to him. And the man is getting ready to hang and he's sitting there, he's crying. And by the way, that's a natural thing. But he's sitting there, he's crying. And he realizes his life is over and this and that or whatever. And his wife turns to him and basically says, straighten up. Do you not know how awesome a pleasure it is to be able to die for your country and to die for what you believe in? And when his wife says it, what does he do? He straightens himself up, dries his tears, or as much as he could, right? His hands are tied, but gets his tears together, and they hang. Right? Not a great ending to the story, but one that shows that men and women need each other and that women can lead too. But when you don't know where you come from and who you are, yeah, it's easy to forget that, or it's easy to say, well, women ain't nothing. Women just need to sit in the background. I don't know. Sometimes women tell us to straighten ourselves up in the places that we don't have. But when we die off to ourselves, like we talked about last night, when you die off to self and selfishness and self-centeredness and die off to it's your way or the highway and stuff like that, then your wife can live in the places that you died off of. Those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, look at the YouTube video from yesterday. Right? But do you see what I'm saying? We don't have a head start. We need to make a safe place for a head start. Our children, our babies, our mothers, our fathers, our husbands, our wives should be in a position to where they are given a chance to have a head start. They're given a chance to be able to move forward in what Yah wants. They're given a chance to learn who they were before the foundation of the world, learn who they were before chattel slavery, learn who they were before Rome entered it, learn who they were before there was a Babylonian context, learn who they are. Right? If you go to Kemet, if you go to, even if you go to Kemet, a lot of persons don't know, if you learn about Kemet, let's say it like that, you'll realize that in Kemet, that there were persons who literally were called Iber or Avda, who were the ones who was considered to be healers. If you were a healer, you were Avda, meaning that they learned healing from who? From you, from Negroes, from Israel. And yet there's Negroes who are going to tell you that if you wear stones or that if you do stuff with herbs and things like that, you must automatically be, and I love me some Pastor Stephen Darby, but I'm being honest, like he has a whole thing where he's like, well, I'm always leery of anybody who's a herbalist, blah, blah. I get it if you're talking about witchcraft, fine, but don't just be like herbs are bad, but then you'll go and you get a chemicalized version of a herb from somebody else and talk about that's great, where the chemicalized version does more damage than the natural herb. Can you guys hear me, by the way? Today's a bad day for signal, so I know there's only a few of us on, but if I don't hear, or if I don't see anything in the chat, I can't see if y'all are actually on with me or not. But if you are, thank you for being on, right? Can y'all hear me? Can y'all see me? I know it's been very glitchy today, and it's kind of on the same thing for a minute, so I can't tell. Either way, though, I'm pretty much almost finished with it. Like I said, today was going to be a short one, so. Looks like y'all might not be with me. All right. Okay. YouTube is, okay, we got YouTube. I don't know about TikTok. Facebook looks like you'll just see it when it's uploaded. It looks like we lost Facebook a while ago. Right? But prayerfully, you get what I'm saying. You get the context. You realize and recognize what's going on. And you realize that the opportunity is now here for a head start. I really don't have to go much deeper in this. The opportunity is here now today for us to have a head start. What are we going to do with it? Are we going to implement the Head Start? Are we going to make sure that our children do learn about themselves? Are we going to make sure that we stop being in a position to where we're always reactive? I was talking with Elder Amma last night about this. I was saying how, I really am glad we're going in the place we're going in, but we got to pick up steam because all the stuff that we said is going to happen according to the word. So I didn't say it's going to happen. Y'all said it's going to happen, but it's happening right before our eyes. It's happening right now. Stuff that we said we need to make sure that we're together on. Stuff that we said we needed to make sure that we were ready for. Oh yeah. No connection, he says. Weird. Interesting. Yeah. I think we're having issues today. We literally have connection, and they're saying we don't have connection. They've been on messing with stuff today on all platforms. So Sorry about that. It is what it is. But yeah, so we had to get to this place where we recognize and realize what's going on. I really don't have much more places to go in and stuff like that. Yeah, I see it's buffering now. It was said that everything was fine as far as the signal, and then I looked and I was asking you guys if you could hear me because nobody had said anything in a while on the chat. So I'm not even sure where we left off, but that's okay. We got it recorded on YouTube. YouTube seems to be hanging in there, even at the other platforms. It seems like if y'all knew what I had to go through just to get the stuff to work today, I came out early and was like trying to be, and then we were still on time, but I came out early trying to make sure we kept it up, and it's been a lot today just to get on. But hopefully, you heard everything. Okay, I couldn't see anything. All right, so I'm just saying. Now you doing, Brother Craig. I'm just saying we have to get to a place where we say a head start is mandatory. Start learning and living in such a manner that you're not always reactive, but that you're proactive and that you're preactive. Start learning and living in such a manner that you're not reactive, but you're always proactive and preactive. This is even why when I do stuff with marital coaching and stuff like that, I tell persons all the time, be careful about what's going on. A lot of persons wait until you have problems versus be preactive and proactive. Right? I'm learning to take my own advice and stuff like that too, more and more. But be preactive, be proactive. Instead of assuming because everybody you've been with before or every friend you've had or whatever it is, right, does stuff like this, and so that means that when your spouse or your loved ones do da 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 da, right? Like learn how to say, okay, hey, we're just starting off, or hey, even if we 5 years in, 10 years in, 20 years in, whatever, this is something that might be new or something that you don't know about me. So hey, look, when I'm doing this, I want you to know I'm doing this for this. Even if they go, okay, babe, I don't really care if you do that, but you're doing it. Why? Because I'm trying to be preactive, proactive. I want you to know, culturally speaking, the culture that we have in this house, we're going to do this, right? The reason why I'm moving this, the reason why I'm cleaning it like this is because boom, 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 right? And in that way, okay, cool. Or hey, I have, you fighting with somebody, you have a fight with somebody or whatever, and you like, or there's something going on. Hey, I want you to know, like pull them to the side if you can't do so in the moment, right? Hey, thank you for staying with me. I can see why you were confused, right? Thank you for being by my side. I can see you confused as to why I was freaking out about blah, blah. I want you to know this is what I saw in this moment. You might not have seen it. I saw it in this moment. So I want you to know reason why I moved the way I moved. So if you see me move like that again, now you know, right? Be preactive, right? Stop being reactive. We need to start learning and treating things in such a manner where we're no longer always reactive, but we become proactive and preactive. And thank you, babe. I see you. Right? Make sure that we're preactive and proactive. We need to make sure that we're doing this stuff correctly. A lot of us are incorrect in how we're dealing with this. And so we're saying all these things, doing all these things, we're not setting things up properly, correctly, and we're getting waxed. Because we're always reactive. Right? We're now reactive. Oh, okay, now we need to talk about land. But when we had land, what did we do to keep land? Now we're reactive. Oh, well, we don't even have weapons anymore, access to it or whatever. What happened when you did have the access? You see? Like, and somebody says, well, they came in and they did it. Look, okay, I'm with you. They did mess up a lot of towns and they did fight against that and that, but you know that there's towns that they didn't do that to. Or it's like when we say, well, nobody knew about Israel, blah, blah. There's a lot of Israelites who kept up the Israelite faith. That's why we can actually point them out today and say, so-and-so keeps up the customs, so-and-so kept the traditions. In the 1800s, the monks said about this. In the 1800s, 1700s, the missionaries said about this and this and this. Like, we know this stuff is there, right? It gives us a head start. Somebody had to keep this up. Right? The enemy doesn't want you to have a head start on who you are. The enemy doesn't want you to have a head start on who you are. Who are you as a mother? And what are you doing to have a head start? Who are you as a father? What are you doing to have a head start? That's part of your responsibility. Part of our responsibility is to ensure that our children have a head start and that they don't end up in the same places that we are, as far as I don't know who I am. As far as somebody said today, I'm 65 years old before I realized that I actually do have a native tongue. right? That's serious. That's crazy work. That we would be in a position to where we literally don't know who we are to that extent, right? And as I've said before, how do we do, or as it was even asked in Q&A session on Sunday, I believe, right? How do we come out of this? How do we get better? How do we grow? How do we ensure that we're not dealing with the same issues over and over and over and over again? How do we make sure that that stuff isn't going on? Well, guess what? It's daily, every day, every day. Because how long did it take you to get to where you are? How long did it get you to before you actually said, you know what? Maybe there's something to this Bible more than what I thought, or maybe there's something to the Bible because maybe you didn't think there was anything to it. Maybe the Bible has more than 66 books. Maybe how long did it take you to get there? Because of what somebody, you know, put you through, taught you, and told you that this was the only way to look at society. It took you a little while to get there, right? So now it's going to take. Now we're going to make sure that it takes as long as it takes to get out of it, right? Not just to say about it, not just to have faith out of it, but now you got to develop your works to match what you're developing in faith, and develop your faith to match up what's developing in works, because works alone ain't going to get you there either. I hear you. Yeah, it's okay, especially when you first learn it. I told persons when I first learned a lot of this stuff about truth and things like that, like I had heard about it. My family kind of mentioned it from here time to time, but I never really studied, lived it, traveled, talked to persons, you know, dissected things, got the books, got the videos, all that stuff. And when I started to live it and have faith in it and realize that this is true, I was like, oh wow. And yeah, that really, it really did something to me. I tell persons, like, there was about 2 weeks that in my life that if you had met me, I was that angry, so-called angry black man, you know, not trying to say I feel like this now, but just being honest, like, F all white people, blah, blah, all the bad, that I was there for like a couple weeks, right? And even after, I was still angry. However, the truth that I was in told me that that's not how you conduct yourself. So I still, regained or gained the actual form and the actual truth that I should have had the whole time, right? But I'm just saying, ultimately, be okay with being who y'all want you to be. Be all right with being what y'all said you are, and be all right with having a head start. Give yourself, give your children, give your community an opportunity to learn and to grow and to have the information so that when we see, you know, it's really interesting. Everybody wants to do when we see Elon Musk do this Hail Hitler salute, everybody goes, oh, and then we see now all these persons are doing it with him, and everybody's like, I'm so, why are you shocked? Why is that news? Elon Musk is a South African guy who made his money from a father that was dealing with apartheid. Right? Elon Musk lied. Why are we surprised by that? This is culture. This is culture. Even with the Snoop thing, remember I told you I'm gonna be careful, I'm gonna just use it as an example. Even the Snoop Dogg thing, right? I didn't really study it, but just being in the circles that I'm in, I learned that, Snoop Dogg, he wasn't even at a Trump rally. However, he was at a place that supports Trump, right? On the eve of when Trump was voted in, and therefore he basically was still doing the same thing. But how many of us at least looked up that? That's why I said, from what I heard, I made it a point to be like, allegedly, from what I heard, I'll just use it as an example to talk about stuff. I don't know if Uncle Snoop was doing that or not. He does have some really weird behavior outside of just this, but we should at least know what the truth, because everybody got so reactive and nobody thought to themselves, well, hold up, like, where was this? What was he doing? He was not at an actual Trump rally, but yes, he was performing at a place for da. And by the way, see, if anybody you should have been saying that. Say it more about Nelly or whoever the other young cat was that they talk about, because he was somebody who actually, when asked about it, he said, well, it's an honor to perform for my president. Okay. Well, if you feel a certain way, if you're Republican, Democrat, whatever, going back and forth, well, then that's a different conversation. So when Snoop comes out and apologizes, now let's be honest, Snoop himself is somebody who has this whole thing where he does really weird stuff culture-wise, right? He'll allow even like Drake to be able to use his name and use his voice, his AI voice, and use Tupac's AI voice and be all in on it, and just told Kendrick, you better carry the torch. Not, 10 years before that or something like that, and then all of a sudden, he doing the stuff that he's doing now, and then he just comes out and says, I'm sorry, it was the edibles. And even Kendrick said, I pray it was the edibles. Right? But Snoop has some weird behavior. Snoop has some stuff to where he said stuff about Pac that ain't true. He says stuff about Nas that ain't true. We can say that, fine. But nobody even said, hey, first things first. Was Snoop actually at the Trump rally? But as far as what everybody's telling me, he was at a Trump rally. He wasn't at a Trump rally. It still was a bad look. But once again, here we go again. Give your children a head start, because your children shouldn't even look up to Snoop as being somebody who's fighting for you. Snoop is in the bed with Jimmy Iovine. What did you expect? You see what I'm saying? Snoop is in the bed with Jimmy Iovine. He's in the bed with those who are against you and say that they are you and are not. But are the synagogues of Satan and make money off of appropriating while simultaneously saying that you have no culture. And putting together a system to where you guys go ahead and fight against each other. The persons who support Lil Wayne, right? The persons who give the money to Birdman, who therefore gives the money to Lil Wayne. I know he's not with it anymore, but even though they got back and did their little concert or whatever. But the person who does those things, that person is the same person who makes sure that he doesn't, make sure that he gets insurance on a Lil Wayne, because he's going to help make sure Lil Wayne gets whatever he wants to be kept in line, including being on lean. Right? Well, Oprah too. Yeah, it's different. That's same. I guess same thing. Entertainment, right? But all I'm saying is, give your child a head start. Your child should never think. Your child should never think. Hear what I'm saying? Your child should never think and never be okay with thinking that Lil Wayne or Oprah or Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, any of them, were persons to look up to. Everybody's like, man, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and all this stuff coming out, and was he messing with little children and blah, blah, and this and that or whatever. He worked for Vince McMahon. You know what time it is if he worked for Vince McMahon. Everybody's acting like now because of a Netflix special and all this stuff. Persons knew who Vince McMahon was. Vince McMahon was saying the N-word on television a long time ago. Vince McMahon was having persons like Trish Stratus kissing them on camera and stuff. Vince McMahon was out here, married to Linda McMahon in name only, but really doing all types of stuff all the time. Vince McMahon was out here cutting his own son out of the WWE and stuff like that, and allowing Triple H, who was somebody who was just as scandalous as he was, to be in position. Like, you know this stuff. If you don't, it's not because they didn't show it to you, it's because we chose not to look at it. You didn't give yourself a head start. You know, right? Who somebody is. When somebody tells you, one of our ancestors, famous ancestors, once said what? When somebody tells you who they are, believe them. And believe them when? Believe them the first time. Don't leave that part out. Yeah, they were shut down our throats. Yeah. Don't you want to be like them? Yeah, Maya Angelou, that's right. If somebody tells you who they are, believe them the first time. How do you believe them the first time if you have no head start? How do you believe them the first time if you have no head start? When somebody tells you who they are, believe them the first time. Once again, lack of a head start. The reason why you having all this stuff and everything and being against it, oh my greatness, I can't believe that they never told us this and they never showed us this and blah, blah. No, they showed you, they told you, but you didn't come from a place of like, yo, I'm going to get a hit in the game, right? Last thing I'll say, and then I got to take, I hope we don't lose YouTube. I literally don't have that much battery left, but it was going to be short today anyways. Hear what I'm saying? Last thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to take my leave on it, right? One of the things that has helped me to be who I am, and one of the things that has helped SOC, even in me not always knowing what I'm doing, if I be totally honest, but it's always helped SOC to be what we're supposed to be, is because I stay on truth. That is the head start. I stay within culture. I'm staying within the proper mindset. I'm not moving off the truth. If I make a mistake, or if I've been raised, because I was raised in a lot of stuff that wasn't even church, but was still just as wrong and not even worse. Jehovah's Witness stuff, all types of stuff, right? If I'm still holding on to certain things and certain philosophies that are not of the word and the will of Yah, then guess what? I'm willing to change, because the truth is the truth, right? The word's not changing just because I'm changing. So if the word has always supposed to have been this, and I come and find out, oh, it's not. And I've even messed up sometimes thinking, okay, the word, I looked up the word and it said this, blah, blah, and had to come back. Hey guys, you know what? I'm sorry, I was wrong. I thought we could eat, we can't do that. I thought that we could say, we can't do that. I thought, because the word doesn't change. That being said, the one thing that has helped me is to make sure that I hold on to Yah's unchanging hand. The word don't change. Amen. We are Barak in abundance. Come on, right? The word doesn't change. And so one of the things that helps us is that even when everybody else change on voting and all this stuff, we never change because we don't vote. We have a king. So when everybody, and I told you what was going to happen. We had a lot of SOC members, and everybody started getting into this, and I saw the post. I tried not to comment on it too much because I knew it was going to be hurting feelings, but I made it known, like, hey, this voting stuff, you're going to get lost in it and all this. And we lost a lot of cash. We lost lots of interest. We lost a lot of attachment, connection, et cetera, et cetera. We did. Right? Because persons were mad and persons were frustrated and persons didn't like the fact that I was talking about it don't matter who the president is. And sure enough, like, guess what? Trump is doing the same. See, here's the wild part. Is Trump and Biden do the same thing. If you say Trump's going to get into office, oh my greatness, I can't believe he's coming into office. Israel is going to be supported. Trump supported Israel. Obama supported Israel. Biden supported Israel. Bush supported Israel. Clinton supported Israel. Do we need to go on? Reagan supported Israel. Carter supported it. Do we need to go on? Right? You don't realize that the president don't work for you. Just because somebody lied and told you the president is the president of a corporation. The CEOs tell him what to do. Period. And guess what? If Kamala had been voted in, she'd do the same thing. Look at her life. Look at her personal life. Look at her house. Look at her husband. Look at how she treats different things. She told everything now is Howard, HBCU, this and that, or whatever. For the longest time, she didn't care about all that. Yeah, their bosses don't give them options. When you go to your job, if your boss tell you what to do, you don't like it, but you do it. I know it because there'll be times that we don't see you for a while and you're like, yeah, I was busy at work, I couldn't get out of work. Because you put the job first. The way the system is set up, you got to put the boss who doesn't really care about you first before you even put the word. And a lot of persons choose to do so, right? Prayerfully, you're not in a position where you have to do it. I know that's a touchy subject, right? Trigger warning. I'm not trying to come down on you. I'm just trying to tell you that's what goes on. And when Massa or boss say how high, right? Boss is really the overseer. But when he say jump, because Massa said jump, you say how high. And you hope that if you jump high enough, they'll give you extra credit or they'll give you a little more money in your pocket. Give you that overtime pay. And it was worth the jump, right? It was worth as much as possible. It was worth it because you got a little bit more payment for the one who's conquered and oversees the one who conquered you. Right? So what I'm trying to say is that we are not going to change. We talked about this over and over again in this safe place, but this is a safe place for our algorithm, a safe place for our point of view, a safe place for a head start. A safe place for a head start. Everything we do, we want to make sure that you're always ahead of the game. And if we're always in the word is eternal, which means before something happens in time, in eternity has already happened. We want you to have a head start. It doesn't matter who your president is. It's the same beast. It doesn't matter what racist person said. What it does to its extent, be aware of it. But it don't matter what racist person said because racism going to happen whether it's on wax or not. Whether we know who was racist towards you personally or not, it's going to be the same thing, the same leaders, the same mindset. Right? But the word don't change. So if the word doesn't change, then we don't change. Man doesn't live by bread alone. Man doesn't live by CNN. Man doesn't live by Fox. Man doesn't live by TikTok. It doesn't live by Facebook. It doesn't live by YouTube. It doesn't live by the podcast. Man live by what? Or at least man should live by what? By every word uttered out of the mouth of Yah. That's our head start, is that his word is not only true, it's not only pure, but it's consistent. It's the most consistent thing to ever exist. And the second that it wasn't consistent or wasn't truthful is the second that everything falls. And that's why our lives fall apart, because the second we're not consistent with it is the second everything falls. The second we're not consistent with it with our children fall. You said, why does the Most High allow the majority of people in the world trapped in the system? Well, he allows persons to make choices of free will. That's a great question, right? I'm not going to, if it was anybody else, that's my boy asking the question. I got to get ready to get off, but I'll answer it for a couple minutes before I get off, right? We'll make this the very last thing, right? And follow Ricky McCoo, musician extraordinaire, right? Still look up to him in a lot of different ways, and his kindness that he showed towards me at all times is something that I'll never forget, right? And at some point, some point when I'm coming through Virginia, we gonna meet up. I know I keep saying it. At some point we gonna meet up. I don't care if it's just to dap each other or something, right? Got to get some of that tender love. but hear what I'm saying, right? That we do have choices though, and what's happened is a lot of us think that the only wealth comes through the state, right? And that's why once again this year, y'all gonna see me disappear a little bit more, especially when it starts dealing with the land, right? Because one of the things we have control over is our food. Matter of fact, we have a brother in here. We've been telling y'all, get ready, because this brother, he's got chicken and he's got lamb. Now, that's only two types of meat, but it's growing naturally. If you eat meat, we got that. We'll take care of the herbs and stuff, right? We still got some of the seed. We got so many seeds from different person that we still have some seed left. We didn't really have a chance to put stuff in the ground, but we're gonna start making sure we do that, right? We have opportunity. We have our own businesses. We have opportunity. We can start building, even when we start taking whether it's shipping containers or as persons help us to develop tiny homes or whatever the case might be. But we have stuff, and you don't have to be there 24/7 even, but at least get there to a point to where you can save up, and then you can start taking the money you're making and get your own property and get your own stuff, and then you stop being worried about somebody else. We think that all of our stuff has to come through the system, right? And most of us, that's how our parents made it. That's how we made it. We had to go through the government. We had to go through the beast. But it's not, right? Like the persons who make the most money, they don't worry about the government going up or down. They're not worried about so-called, not inflation, but forgive me. When everything crashes, forgive me. Somebody help me out. Somebody help me out. I'm trying to finish up. What is it? Like when the bubble burst. What is the word I'm looking for? Right? And they always recession. Recession. That's what I'm looking for. Right? Persons who make money don't care about recession. They make more money during the recession. Right? They have taught us, not just only black folk, by the way, or Negroes, or Israelites, etc., but they've even taught so-called white folks and everybody in between, recession, be worried about this, everything will crumble, right? But they've taught you to be against cryptocurrency and stuff like that, even though cryptocurrency works better than the money in your bank, because if you go to your bank and you were asked, let's say you got $1 million saved up, go to your bank right now and say, I need $1 million. Your bank will not give it to you. Go to them 2 weeks after that, say, where's my million? They still will be like, we're waiting on it. Why? Because the money don't even exist. It's all numbers in the system. There's no gold to back up the money, and the only thing that's keeping your money having any value is because the United States is still conquering folk and telling persons, hey, keep looking at us. But the only reason why the dollar used to be such a big deal is because the gold standard was there. And so other countries had given up the gold standard, but they were willing to say, well, we'll attach our value according to the dollar, because the dollar still has a gold standard. Once the dollar lost the gold standard, the dollar doesn't mean anything anymore, right? And it's kind of like a question, Brother Ricky, it's kind of a question like this. When we were in boot camp, if everybody in boot camp said, we're not going to listen, what were they going to do? Or if everybody in the military at one time just says, you know what, we're not going to serve anymore, what are they going to do? Like, it would crumble. But when we say the people have the power, we don't really think so, because somebody says, well, I'll take your money away for a couple of weeks. Well, this is why you need to learn how to forage. This is why you need to have land that you actually own, allodial titles and all that. This is why you need to learn sovereignty. This is why you need to get with persons who are like-minded, because a lot of us live in very nice places around persons who care less about what you feel. And so you feel like closed in, you feel like you're by yourself, but you're not by yourself, or at least, right, what's virtual has to become reality. But the Most High gives us free will. At any time, we can choose to be separate, right? Like, I am not connected to the government. Used to work for the government, right? Not connected to the government. Not worried about what they say, blah, blah, right? As far as commerce, as far as things that are commercial in business, yeah, there's certain things that I would do with anybody. That's law. But as far as, like, I'm not worried about what such and such says. I'm worried to an extent that I know my people are in trouble. That keeps me up at night. That if I don't make sure I teach the persons that I'm around about militia and stuff like that, and being prepared and making sure that we support one another, and I'm even doing this in my neighborhood that I'm at now, like, hey, let's be in business. Let's go and do this. Let's try to build this up, right? So that we have this thing where we protect each other. Right now, why would you protect somebody and they don't pay you, or they don't look up, they don't help you, they don't exhort you, they don't do anything for your children, but so-called the beast of the government does, or so you think they do, because they pay your bills, right? That's why we're saying honor the system, honor what Yah says, pay each other's bills, sow into each other, support one another. If the only person, like, it's real easy for me to say, I get it. It's real easy for me. That's why I was led to say yesterday that excellence is difficult. Mediocrity is average. The average person is mediocre, and those who are below it, or really more than those, a lot more persons look up to what's mediocre in the world, right? Having bare minimum and staying afloat and surviving is mediocre. But many persons are going to stay there, and less persons will do what it takes to become excellent, which means less nations will do. This is why we're building a nation, a holy nation, a peculiar people. We're building a nation that's separate. We can't be like everybody else was. We can't entertain the same things that everybody else entertained. Now, obviously, that's why we have classes and we have a whole bunch of stuff. We have a whole bunch of live sessions with more questions. But ultimately, it's like, well, why would the Most High allow us to continue to be in there? He's been telling us for the longest time, separate. Get out of there, right? He told us a long time ago, prepare yourself. This is what's going to happen. He told you Revelation. This is what's going to happen. He told you in Matthew 24. This is what's going to happen. He told you, hey, make sure that you function together as a nation. He told you you would be scattered, but even though you're going to be scattered, there's a time where you start to need to start coming back. He told you you'll look as dry bones, but dry bones can live again. He gives you certain things financially. This is how you operate. This is why he says put stuff away in the storehouse. The same way that you put your stuff in the bank for somebody who doesn't care about your people, you should have a storehouse for your people, right? It's commonwealth, it's kingdom, and the commonwealth was common to one, is common to all. So even, yes, the poor will be with you always, but that's why you have the storehouse. If somebody's broke down and doesn't have food, we have a place where you can get food from. If somebody broke down and doesn't have clothes, we have a place you can get clothes from. Right? These dry bones live, come on, right? So there's a lot more to it, obviously. That's why we talk about this stuff. That's why we have classes. That's why we do all this stuff. But that's what we're trying to tell persons. You got to come out of a systemic way of thought that is having you stay still and having you do the same thing over and over and over again. It's time for us to be what Yah wants us to be, and to move different, to act different, and to learn different, and to keep up with what His Word says. That being said, I am literally out of time. And if I'm not careful, I'll lose even more stuff virtually that they've been keeping down than I want to. So thank you all. Love y'all. You all take care. Pray for us. I should be on for #SOC University this evening, 6:30 p.m.ish. If it changes, it probably might end up being moved earlier. I'm not sure. If it does get moved, just be ready for it to get moved. Or maybe even we have to do part today and part tomorrow or something, but we'll tell you how that's going to work. And then I'll see you tonight, this evening, and then we'll see you tomorrow for the live session. So love y'all to life. Take care. Thank you so much. We give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor then for my wife, the Honorable Amma. And remember, as always, fam, that you are loved. You are necessary. You are majestic. You're fearfully, wonderfully made. And you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in the system no longer have to be of it. Early Shabbat Shalom if I don't see you later. Peace.